All right. Hey, what's up, Ruslan? Good to have you here, man. Welcome to the channel. This is awesome.
Glad to be here, Rob. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Yeah. Very excited, man. I mean, I've been, I hate to be the fanboy, but I have been a huge fan of the channel, man. Learning a lot from you and how you do things, and what you're teaching on the channel as well, of course. But yeah, just seeing like how you're creating on a almost daily basis, pretty much, right?
Yeah, more or less daily. I don't go live daily, but pretty close to it.
Pretty close to it. Yeah. I feel like you're. Yeah, I mean, we'll dive into it. We'll dive into it. But yeah, before we jump into some questions that I have for you about how you're growing your channel and everything, why don't you say hello to everybody and kind of what you are all about on your channel and what you're sharing on there?
Yeah, my name is Ruslan. I originally got my start doing music, and a couple years ago started dabbling in YouTube after seeing the opportunity in the space, seeing some other people, friends, acquaintances that had some success.
Hmm.
I was connected to guys like Sean Cannell pretty early
Of
on
course.
before he had his big Think channel. My buddy Belief had some success on YouTube, and so I saw the opportunity and started dabbling, I'd say 2015, 2016-ish, kind of like during the vlogging era. Took a pause, and then I think about 2018 started to kind of be more frequent with the uploads. Found this format of like interviews and one-taking videos
Yep.
around 2019. And after the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, I got more serious and really locked into doing stuff on a consistent basis and using this current format that I've been doing, which has been probably, say, a little longer than a year. And then within the last 12 months or so, probably 13 months at this point, we've grown by about 75,000 subscribers pretty fast. And
Pretty
so, yeah,
fast.
that's me. My name is Ruslan, husband, father, follower of Jesus. There you go. That's the
Beautiful,
elevator
man.
pitch.
Yeah. That is beautiful. You also have, before we jump into it, like you also have something happening, some live training specifically about YouTube and how you're doing that coming up in a few days. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a 3-day challenge that people can sign up for. It's free. We'll be doing it inside of a private Facebook group. I'll be coaching live. This is not pre-recorded. It's not a webinar, and
Yep.
it's just 3 days of just trying to get people up to the latest things in the what I'm seeing results in the ecosystem of YouTube.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Even though your channel is not like a YouTube strategy, channel, you definitely know your way around YouTube and have you grown. And obviously you've got the silver play button. So you have massive knowledge here. So yeah, so I've shared that with everybody there in the chat. I'll also put it down in the first comment once this live is done. So if you're watching the replay, you can catch it there. So make sure you register. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So take us a little bit back of like how you got into, because like YouTube is not your initially, if I follow your story, you initially are like, you're a music guy,
Yeah.
right? That's how you kind of started. That's your art, and then YouTube kind of became sort of the next thing. But like, yeah, curious how you started and took that, and now really found YouTube, and like you're all in on YouTube clearly.
Yeah.
What made you kind of make that jump, that investment into YouTube?
I think doing music and becoming relatively successful at music in the sense that, as an independent musician, we were grossing six figures.
Right.
A company that I own, 2016, we did multiple six figures as independent musicians. And this is before independent music was really popular.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the Chance the Rappers, the Russes were home names, right? I wanted to make music. I wanted to do YouTube as an overflow of my music. I wanted to be a
Right.
practitioner, and then I wanted to do YouTube and kind of document my journey. And that's what I did for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of some vlog stuff, some kind of like, here's music marketing advice, here's some music reviews. And over time, man, music becomes harder when you have kids to
Right.
travel, to move around. Like there's a lot
A lot of
that goes
challenges.
into doing music. It's much less of a meritocracy. There's way more clout and cosigns and all
Right.
these other things, right? And so YouTube was just honestly for me a fresh start to say, okay, well, let me just all the momentum that I had with YouTube, I mean, with music, all the skills, all the tenacity, all the grind, all the grit, let me apply that to YouTube and approach it as a professional creator who is looking to see the needle move, looking to get results. And I think it was fairly seamless because I did have an audience as a musician. You know, I think
Right. Yeah.
by the time my YouTube started taking off, I mean, I was already at 20, 30,000 Instagram followers. I think my TikTok was at 30,000 followers. So it's not like I started without anything. I
Right.
already had a little bit of momentum going. And so it was a fairly seamless transition. And then I just talked about things that I found interesting and adding my opinion and my commentary on different trending topics and interviewing people that I thought were interesting. And it just kind of snowballed. And then once I had that month where I think my channel close to doubled in subscribers, that's when I was like, oh, like, and I saw the AdSense start ticking up and I was like, whoa, like there's something here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. My Patreon grew, my YouTube grew, my AdSense grew. I was like, okay, sweet. And there's a bunch of people that have no concept of my music, that have no idea that I make music.
Right,
They don't
right.
even understand the genre of music that I was a part of. They were like, man, we like to hear you talk. You're cool. Like, we like to hear you talk. We like your perspective. And I was like, that's freaking amazing. Like, that's really cool. And so that's kind of how it transitioned. And again, this is all relatively new. This is like last November, October, November-ish. So this is all fairly current for me.
Wow, that's fast, man. That's fast, and that's really fast. Yeah, I mean, you came across actually my radar because mutual friend of ours, Alicia Wade III.
Yeah, that's the homie.
Yeah. I saw you guys are hanging out too in real life, you know, which is rare these days. But yeah, no, it's cool to see. So yeah, I came across your channel, and yeah, you're just growing real fast, man. I'd love to start talking about your content strategy, you know, and like, because you're coming up with so much content on a regular basis. You know, you've got this one take style that you're repurposing, and you know, I'd love to just hear your thoughts when you coming up with ideas for content like every single day. Like, how do you kind of look at trending topics? You know, you attack a lot of trending topics, you know, very hard hitting points, and share your opinions and reactions. You know, what's that sort of mindset like?
Yeah, I mean, yes, trending topics, understanding what people are talking about, understanding what people are thinking about. What do people care about? I mean, I just call it disruptive value. Like, I think it's one thing to say, hey, I want to make evergreen content for YouTube. Like, sweet, that's awesome. And I think that is how you built the channel a couple years ago. Make really good evergreen content. Lean on the fact that YouTube is the #2 search engine.
Right.
Fantastic. I think now things are a bit different in that there's a lot of evergreen content already out there. And there's a lot of creators out there.
Right.
And there's people that want to know what their favorite podcaster thinks about said topic.
Right.
And so for me, I've always enjoyed those videos. I've always enjoyed the videos of I wonder what Joe Rogan thinks about this current event. Right. And so I said, hey, this is what I enjoy. This is what I naturally like to hear on. And this goes back to me in my, I think, sophomore year of history class. I had a teacher named Mr. Hidalgo. And my favorite, I was a TA in his class, in a different class, and then I had him for my last period. And my favorite part of the class was we would open up the class with current events.
Cool.
And so instead of just like opening up a book and saying, hey, like, here's the history thing of this, right? It's like, hey, no, let's talk about current events, and let's open with something that's happening. And that always got me engaged. So I think as going back to education, that's always stuck with me. And then if we're then talking about what is happening for the trends right now, right? Like, who's blowing up on YouTube right now?
Right.
And if we're honest, it's not necessarily people making like great evergreen content. I think it's people that are tapped into what's current, some type of topical current event, pulling that into their level of expertise and their ethos, and adding value or context or commentary or their knowledge towards something. And I think those are the people we're seeing explode really, really fast. So it's not that I talk about a lot of different topics. I actually don't. I talk about 5 or 6 topics. I just know them fairly well. Right. And I just repeat the same 5, 6 topics, and I just give my opinion on stuff. And stuff that I don't know about, I'll just say I don't know about, or I'll bring someone else on who is an expert in said topic.
Got it.
So I'll give you a really practical example.
Yeah.
If we're keeping up with Mr. Beast, who's #1 YouTuber, I think, in terms of views right now, not in subscribers, but in views.
Views, yeah.
Mr. Beast has been crushing it. Anyone that's been in the YouTube ecosystem has been up on Mr. Beast. We know who Mr. Beast is. We understand his format, the editing, the pacing, the whole bit. However, Mr. Beast's biggest video was him remaking a topical pop culture event. So if we just poke around, you have it pulled up right there, right? 45 million, 48 million, 46 million, 143 million. He works in a current event, right? Crazy. A current topical cultural topic. And that video is what, 3x his average other videos, right? And now this is mainstream. This is now transitioned to now he's in the YouTube space. He's been a huge name. If you're keep up with Vid Summit or anything like that, everybody knows who Mr. Beast. But now he is now becoming a household name. Why? Because he took something in culture and added his spin on it and his approach and his personality to it.
That's so true.
Right? And so I think this is where, and Mr. Beast has been doing it right for a long time. So like this is not right, but I think what you're seeing with the level up with him is where I think a lot of people who are walking around with expertise, with knowledge, with life experience, with things they've accomplished, and if they would just humble themselves and say, let me add my spin on what is happening in the zeitgeist of culture, they will actually see the needle move and be way more successful and disruptive. And that's what I call it, is disruptive value. Find what people actually care about, put the people first, and say, let me add my 2 cents to what you're already interested in. Like, why would I dare assume that people want to know about like what me and my wife had for breakfast this morning, right? Like that's kind of a narcissistic perspective. But if I say, hey, Joel Osteen just had a plumber come by his church and they found hundreds of thousands of dollars stockpiled in his church plumbing back, and this is hilarious. And I just tell the story, give my 2 cents. That's hilarious, right? People, because that's trending and people want to know about Joel Osteen. People want to know about what this story is. This is current. This is relevant. So yes, I do look at what's trending on Twitter. I do open up Google Trends. I do keep up with the YouTube trending tab. I do keep up with what's going on. Really, because I've always have. It's just who I am. I like keeping up with current events since I was a sophomore in high school. And I think that's the approach that I think distinguishes me, and not just me, but there's other people that are doing it. That I think it's this combination of like take evergreen content and give it a spin by incorporating things that people are already caring about and searching for.
Yeah, that's a real good advice. I haven't heard that advice in a while. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because their advice, they're going to get pushback either way, right? And I don't know if you do this and how you deal with it, but like, people are going to disagree with your opinion, right? Whatever it is. And so, but at the same time, you are like, by choosing a position on something, I think does invite engagement, right? And does really well for your channel. So I love that. What is your advice there? Like, for you, like, I'm sure, you're getting some pushback. What's your advice to a creator that may want to do some reaction videos or like some, topical, current events, content?
I would say take it back to some degree of expertise that you have, even if the expertise is your experience or your opinion, and just be clear about that, right? So don't position yourself as an expert in something that you don't know a whole lot about, right? Just because you read like a WebMD article and now you're going to tell us all about vaccines or whatever, right? Like that's not helpful. But if you're legitimately an expert in something, you've been doing something for a long time, take that, add your spin on it, add your input on it, and let people disagree. That's awesome. They're watching. They care. You've made them feel something. And that's great because, hey, man, AdSense doesn't come with receipts. I don't know how many people watch my videos that hate me and how many people watch my videos that love me and how many people are indifferent. It doesn't matter. Now, in terms of the practical side, I've seen some brothers struggle with this where they'll kind of use this system and then they'll get their first video to kind of touch the algorithm and they'll get 10,000 views, 20,000 views. They've never seen that kind of, and then the comments just come in and people are being nasty to them. And now that's a different conversation, right? But I rather like help people get there before we start trying to address a problem that people don't have yet, right? I'd rather you get there and be like, oh man, they came for me in the comments section. This sucks. How do I, okay, go into the settings. This is how you filter out words. This is how you set it up so where people can't say specific things, right? We could deal with that later, but I think most people are sitting dormant and afraid of trying and then wondering why it's not working. Well, it's not working because you're not really considering the end consumer and what they're looking after in their searches and their interest. So why should they care about your YouTube channel? Again, unless you're already a celebrity or you're already a football player or you already have high profile guests. But average person starting YouTube doesn't have access to that. Like, and it wouldn't even really be good for them. Like if someone is best friends with Kevin Hart and they start a YouTube channel and they have 0 subscribers and then Kevin Hart's their first interview, like that doesn't actually help them. Like we would think that, oh, if I could just get so-and-so to come on. It doesn't really help you because now you got to have something to follow that up with. Like, that's right. God forbid you get 100,000 subscribers overnight. What are you going to do with that? You got to have some system in place to follow that up with. And so I think people just don't factor in all the variables. I'd rather get you hated and eyeballs than let's just cruise and be vanilla and never take any risk and never state your opinion because you might get canceled and your coworker may see that video and disagree with you and have an awkward like, man, at some point you got to take some risk in this thing.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, man. Great advice coming from, you know, obviously a creator that's been there and is growing like crazy. And, you know, that's awesome, man. Saying what's up here real quick. Vaughn Sanders, what's up? Good to see you, sir. Gardens of Blessing. Vaughn? Good to see you here. Justin Brown, all the way from Australia, coming by. Thank you, man. Good to see you. Hope you had a good campaign. Yeah. This is great. So, guys, we're talking with Ruslan, you know, creator on YouTube, musician, father, man, you know, the roster goes on, the list goes on, but really excited to have you here. Now, taking a little bit of sort of strategic, I mean, I know you've got the workshop, but I'd love for you to just kind of break us down your process. When you do, where does your content start? Is it the interview? And then from there...
Yeah,
chop it up.
It started in the interview, and it started. It started with me saying, "I hate Final Cut Pro X and editing video. Okay, I hate everything about it. I hate taking footage off of memory cards. I hate importing footage. I hate dragging footage on a timeline. I hate." Cutting stuff around, like everything about the editing process I find utterly repulsive, right? I am not a filmmaker, even though I can edit videos and I've made some cool like little mini documentaries and that whole bit. So I said, I hate this. Like I hate everything about this. How can I make something that is automated and that is already happening? Meaning that when I was traveling for music, I was already having these really cool conversations with my friends. Like I would sit with like a guy like Lecrae and we would talk for 2 hours and he would just share all these things with me and I'd be like, man, that's so cool. Okay, I got to figure out a way to capture these moments I'm already having backstage at my shows. I'm already having with my buddies, right? So I just got a camera and I discovered this thing called a video switcher. And I was like, dude, video switchers are freaking nuts. Like I can cut cameras and now I'm over here and then I can go, whoa, like I'm over here on this side and then I can come back over here. And so once I discovered video switchers, I said, man, I can take a video switcher with me. I can shoot this whole thing in one take. And then I could either drop it as one video or I could chop them up as individual videos or what have you. So that was step one, was just understanding that the technology had evolved and discovering something as simple as OBS. You're on StreamYard. I use Ecamm now. think about that. Now we're not just talking, no, we're not talking about capture audio separate, import that. Capture video separate, import that. Make sure it lines up and the frame rates match, right? Now we're just saying, hey, I got one file. We're dropping that one file in. It's already cut. It's already lit. It's already color graded. That saved me a lot of time, and it just started with interviews. Then that evolved, and I said, okay, well I can't travel anymore. I got to figure something else out, right? I got to figure something else out. And I said, well, I guess I'm just going to interview myself. and so then I said, let me set my studio up in a way where I can walk in, and within 3 clicks, I got this little thing right here. I don't know if you can see it. There's 3 switches on here. And within 3 clicks, I could turn off everything, right? And I could turn on my entire studio and be rock and rolling. And the first switch, I won't turn it off now because the cameras are on it, right?
Yeah, right.
So I could walk in my studio, turn on my light, hit 3 switches, boom, all the cameras, all the lights, the video switcher, the road everything is on. And then I just need to get to creating and publishing. This is, to me, I would get stuck because I couldn't publish because I would make a video and I would hate it. But if you're already live, you can't really undo it unless you just completely say something stupid and you got to go back and whatever. So I then started going live, and I figured out a way to make my thumbnails inside of OBS.
Right.
Because you could screen grab inside of OBS. So I'm making my thumbnails, and I said, man, let me try this. Let me make a stream and go through 5 topics in one stream, and let's just see what happens. And then all of a sudden I did it, and I was like, whoa, I just pumped out 5 videos in an hour by just looking at what's trending. What can I speak on? Adding my commentary or my level of expertise, pre-making the thumbnails, which a lot of us will have a video, but we hate making the thumbnails. Now I'm pre-making the thumbnails, and I would do that, and I would go, oh, like, I touched the algorithm with one of these, and then over time you start figuring out which videos are going to touch the algorithm, which ones aren't. And the last piece in the equation is that I think the YouTube editor is vastly underutilized. If you could pre-build your entire set show with bumpers, with remember to hit that like button, remember to subscribe, you could pre-build. I mean, the YouTube editor. So what I do now is I just stream. And then I just go in and chop it up right inside of the YouTube editor, and I have 4 or 5 videos done, and there's always videos coming out. People are like, how are you making so many videos? Like, I'm only in here for an hour or 2 a day actually making videos while I'm in here. Most of the time, we're thinking strategy, we're thinking monetization, we're thinking curation. Like, we're having other conversations in terms of me and my team member, Zach, that I don't spend a ton of time looking into a camera and talking, and I do spend a lot of time thinking about these ideas, right? So I try not to just like jump the gun and react to something. I want to marinate on an idea and think through it and kind of have some value to add in terms of the perspective. And so yeah, it's a culmination of systems being streamlined, tying into what people already care about, and being really congruent with who you are and not being afraid to get hate. And I think if people can tap into that, man, YouTube is very fertile, very fertile.
Ready for it. Yeah. No, that's great advice, man. Great advice. I love what you said about just having a studio. You just like come in, turn on the switch, and ready to go. I think part of the setup is like, oh man, I got to set up again, and then you like find an excuse not to create, right? If you're
YouTube, if you're serious about YouTube, and every time you go to create a video, you have to set the camera up, like you are wasting so much time,
right?
And you're getting in the way of your own creative process. Like, get to creating and publishing as quickly as possible. Even if you're like my trainer, who we have using the system, he grew to like 500 subscribers, dropping maybe 1 or 2 videos a week, right? But he's afraid of going live because like he doesn't know who's gonna pop up in the live stream, right? And I'm like, okay, sweet. Go live unlisted, and then go in and chop up the stream on the back end. Right?
Okay.
And so if you're afraid of going live to the general public, then just go live. Now, when you do go live and it is a trending topic or something that's current, it does position you to win in the algorithm. Meaning if something just happened and you just so happen to be working from home and you could break away for 30 minutes on your break and this thing overlaps your niche or your expertise and you could get a video up for it as quickly as possible, holy moly, the live side of it can actually get you to touch the algorithm. And then your intro clock, the interaction with the chat, like you're stopping and interacting with the chat, right? Like I don't really interact with the chat in the middle of my videos. And if I do, I usually just go out and remove it. I'll clip it out. And again, people don't know with the YouTube editor, you can trim the beginning, you can trim the end. You could also trim out sections in the middle and then save as separate videos, which is again, very, very, very powerful tool.
I think that is very underutilized. I've never heard anybody do it that way. I've never heard anybody chop out their live streams into separate videos. So if you guys are doing that, let me know.
Sean Cannell told me. He said, I don't know of anyone that does it that way. And I said, yeah. So that's why we do the YouTube challenge and trying to get, teach people the system, because it's just an easier system that I think the traditional way. And there's nothing wrong with the traditional way of doing YouTube, right? But I don't have the time to go and do all the other little steps that end up just, one, taking more time, like actual man hours, but two, getting in the way of me hitting publish. How do I alleviate that entire process and get to having videos up as quickly as possible? And then it really becomes, okay, now you got to look at your analytics. You got to pay attention to your pacing. You got to pay attention to your engagement. Your retention, your click-through rate. Now it's about refining and paying attention to analytics and getting to your first 100 videos as quickly as possible. And most people, I would say if they do that, they'll get their channels monetized relatively quick. We've had a lot of folks get their channels monetized, get the right number of subscribers, get the number of watch, and legitimately touch the algorithm where they'll have videos that do 5, 10 views, 10 views, 50 views, 50 views, 20 views, 50 views, 20 views, and then boom, 10,000 views. And they're like, oh, right? And then it's like, oh, snap, I have a little something coming in from AdSense. And then once people get a taste of that and they realize that like, man, I could spend 5 hours a week doing this and the ROI of it is massive potentially. And this is the part that people don't realize, is every time you aren't on YouTube, there's someone else who probably has an inferior product to yours that's taking market share from you.
It's so true.
And that should terrify you because perception is reality. So if you are sitting there at my son's piano lesson the other day, Thursday is kids day, parent kids day, right? And I was sitting there and I was like, man, his teacher is so amazing. She's teaching us about chords and Beetle, grass, like all these different things. And I'm like remembering chords. I'm like, she is brilliant. She's teaching us to like 5, 6, 7-year-olds. I'm like, dude, if she was on YouTube, she would be phenomenal. She has the perfect personality for it. She has the perfect just knowledge. This is her expertise. She could crush, but because she isn't, and I think she's very, very elite, some other person that's probably trash has the leading YouTube channel with teaching kids how to learn music. Yeah. And that to me infuriates me because I think now there's talented people that are losing at having market share for their potential product, their service, the digital product. And that to me is like, man, that's the opportunity cost that I don't think we've even begin to fathom. In the same way that most online businesses have to have a budget set aside for AdSense, right? For Facebook and Instagram, Google Ads. I think we're going to get to a place where people are going to need to set aside some money for the free organic reach of YouTube for their product. I think that's where we're going. I think that's where this whole thing is going because Facebook, Instagram ads are already changing. Like it's already getting harder and harder to do retargeting ads and pixel ads. But Google's the number 2 search engine, and a lot of people aren't taking advantage of it to highlight their product or their brand or their service.
Yeah. I mean, so you're saying that there's going to be even more opportunity, more revenue coming through AdSense for creators. That's what you're saying.
I think so. I think
so too.
One, there's going to be people that say free money, right? So that's like I was talking to a buddy of mine who's an 8-figure entrepreneur. We were helping him out with his YouTube, and he just said, so what do you make? And I said, I make this much. He said, that's like free money. I was like, well, it's not really free money. He's like, well, you're not really doing a whole lot of work for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really doing it. I was like, that's free money. Like, that's free money that's coming in on top of like the free visibility for my apparel line. We have Bless God as an apparel line, people discovering my music. So yes, I think the free side of the reach is something that people are really are missing out on, because I'm not running Facebook ads for this whole Bless God camp. Like, we don't have a Facebook ads expert that we're paying money to. We run like very minimal retargeting ads, but all of our stuff that's going up, and we're doing 5 figures a drop every time we drop a new apparel, combination. We're doing 5 figures a drop, and that's all organic. Like, that's literally just YouTube.
That's just YouTube. Yeah, man, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, man, that's so much to unpack there. I mean, I think it's you're right. Like, there's it's like so much opportunity on YouTube, and AdSense is one, but like, we're not going to even dive into like all the other revenue streams that you've got going on YouTube, awareness, all that stuff, exposure for other opportunities too, right? Like, not just these like tangible, revenue streams, but other things that are happening behind the scenes that we don't even get to see, right? Like, so no, this is fantastic. I'm just gonna pause real quick, say what's up to a lot of people here that are tuning in. See Mr. Riley's World is here. What's up, fellas? Crime Wave Beats sounds like somebody that you know, maybe from your community, Ruslan. Love the channel. Literally inspired me to start my own. Fantastic. Justin Brown, our friend from Australia, he said lots of hate. I think that's when you were talking about like how you don't like Final Cut and all that. So I was just making a joke there. Vaughn Sanders, what's interesting is a number of people that don't take the advice of people like you yet still complain that their channel isn't growing. So I think, that goes across the board on like many different places. Yeah.
This is why we like, you could lead somebody, what is it? You could lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Exactly.
Right? Hey man, look, Vaughn, you know that this system works, right? Because I see you implementing it. We know other people implementing it, and the good news is at least people know where the ladder is.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you then choose to not implement a scaled system, and what I'm not saying is like, if you make like super amazing theatrical movies and you're super far artsy and you love Final Cut products, I'm not telling those people to stop doing what they're doing. I'm saying, hey, how about you add another 4 or 5 videos, or do a spin-off channel and like drop 10 times the amount of content, because people at this point just care what you have to say, right? I have so many talented friends that are like, yeah, but it has to be perfect, and and it's like, what are we talking about? Like, why? Because you feel inadequate? Because you find your identity in what you create? Like, at the end of the day, the difference between an artist and a professional creator is a professional creator needs results. Like, we need that algorithm move. Like, my kids will eat food or not based on how my videos do. It's that real, right? And so it's like, if you want to dabble and do this as a hobby, respect. Like, I'm not mad at that person. However, for the person that's like, no, this is going to become a part of my marketing efforts, and or this is going to become, for someone like Vaughn who has a ministry, this is a way for me to get out valuable, important, life-changing information that's going to move the needle on someone's life. I don't have time to goof around with it or create excuses for myself or dabble. I have to go all in and start dominating, as my buddy Sean Cannell would say.
That's it. Another really good question here from Vaughn. He says, I've heard you talk about, taking, sort of like skill stacking. So, speak on that a little bit, real quick, like, cause skill stacking, what is that? What are you doing right now? What kind of skills are you actually like trying to pursue right now?
Yeah. So the idea of skill stacking is taking skills that we all have and developing skills on top of them that make our skill sets scarce and valuable to ourselves, first and foremost, and also to the marketplace. So I'll give you a bad example. My trainer, who is an amazing human being, I love him dearly. He's like a big brother to me. We set up his studio, and in the process, we discovered that he didn't have the basic skill of using like a computer. So like, we're trying to teach him how to use like OBS and YouTube editor, and he like doesn't know how to use a computer. I'm like, okay, like, if you know how to use a computer and type on a keyboard, you're already ahead of that person who doesn't have that skill, right? So like I got a buddy of mine who spent the majority of his adult life in prison, in and out of prison. He got out, and I'm trying to teach him Final Cut because I'm like, hey, you could come work for me and like do all my videos. And like, he's like, yeah, and he had a great eye and he could figure out the camera, but he couldn't use a computer. He couldn't maneuver, like copy, paste, right? So on and so forth. So that's a negative example of a skill set. It's very difficult to stack a skill on top of that if you can't even use like the basics of a computer. Thankfully, most people here know how to maneuver on YouTube. You probably can type, copy, paste, open up YouTube, search for something, open up an app, right? So if you could do that, you're already ahead of a lot of people who can't. And so now we can say, okay, boom, you know how to do Photoshop. Great, now let's skill stack that and create motion graphics with that. So you can create cool little bumpers. Okay, you know how to do Photoshop. Let's get you working and creating some logos because you know how to do thumbnails. You've goofed around enough to figure out how to make thumbnails in Photoshop. Fantastic, let's make some logos. Okay, you know how to use Final Cut. Great, that means that you could also figure out how to use a Rodecaster Pro to get really crispy audio. You know how to use a camera? Great, that means you know how to use lighting. You know how to use lighting? Now you could do somebody's entire YouTube setup. So what I'm getting at is these skills are very valuable for the average person that wants to create their own YouTube channel. They're important. But what they're also have the potential of doing is now you can go and do this for other people if you wanted to. Because if you've refined your process, you've built out a studio, you've done this entire thing, you could pull up and do something for someone else and make way more money potentially helping someone else build out their studio, and maybe they don't have the capacity because they don't know how to use a computer. There's a lot of folks out here that are like brilliant influencers, the whole bit, but like they don't know how to use a computer. But they got the mouthpiece, they have the audience, and they're willing to pay somebody $2, $3, $4 a month to show up and do their vlogcast, to do their podcast, to chop up their videos in the editor, to put right. And so I'm seeing a lot of my friends who are hopping on and they're taking the skills of, oh, I know how to use my iPhone and I understand symmetry and I understand angles. Great, now I'm gonna help a business make IG Reels and TikTok videos right off on my phone, right? So now we're getting into building little media agencies and small businesses. And that's what I mean by skill stacking is I think we undervalue the skills that we do have. And if you just keep adding on, keep adding on, keep adding on. So the stuff that I'm personally working on is we're trying to develop systems and teams so that we could potentially go and do some of this other stuff for higher end clients, do installs for them, do coaching for them. So I'm trying to develop the skill of like coaching and helping other people recreate what I'm doing. And then, dude, I'm always curious. Like I'm always finding something that I like. Let me hop on Photoshop and learn something new on Photoshop. Let me hop in and learn something new about a camera. I'm always looking at the latest technology coming out. When is a 4K video switcher coming out? Because I really want to be streaming at 4K, but there's not a 4K consumer level video. So I'm always just kind of dabbling and learning stuff. But yeah, I think remaining curious is the key, in my opinion, is that you have to have the will to develop the skills. And that requires you being curious and saying, hey, like, life is just one big video game.
Pretty much.
I could figure this out. Like, guys, you could figure out how to use a camera. Like, you could figure out how to use the Rodecaster Pro. You could figure out how to use a video switcher. You could figure out how to use YouTube Editor. But you have to be humble and curious to say, all right, well, let me just dabble and just have fun and approach it the same way my son is approaching his Nintendo Switch that we just got him. We got him a new Nintendo Switch. Oddly enough, Mario Deluxe is like really popular again. So me, my wife, my son, and my niece are playing Nintendo Switch. He is terrible at it, awful at it, but he's curious. And because he's curious, he's willing to keep trying. That is a skill he's developing, is to learning how to game. If you approached all of life like that, hey, I know how to do this, let me just stack a skill with that, let me just stack a skill with this, I'm gonna stack another skill, and you just keep adding skills, then before you know it, you look up, you're 25, 30, 35, 40 years old, and you got this really unique skill set. And then you like that movie Taken, where he's like, I have a very particular set of skills, right? You become that guy, and then that guy can crush in his job.
Yeah.
You're so much more valuable to your employer if you can do copy, if you could do social, if you could do good Instagram photos, short videos, IG reels. You're so much more valuable with where you are if you could just expand your skill set. But it starts with having the will to be humble and curious.
I love it, man. I love it. I think this, I mean, that is so much knowledge right there that you're sharing, man. I appreciate that. And there's a question here. We're not going to answer this because I think this is a perfect question to kind of wrap us up today.
Sure.
Aisha May, I think. Hopefully I'm saying your name right.
Aisha May, I think.
Aisha May, perfect.
Asia May, that's my homegirl. What up, Aisha?
Aisha May, awesome. So so wants a segment, titling videos, structuring actual content, how do you do the hook and all that. I think it's a perfect segue to just dropping a little invite to your workshop.
I think Asia, I think you have our Master YouTube Live course, I believe. I would encourage you to jump into the challenge. We're going to be adding my little format that I have. Like I have a Google sheet of all of that. And I got to figure out how to make it not just a Google sheet, but like make it like export it. That's my new skill that I'm trying to
there
learn.
You go. That's the next skill.
Export Google Docs so that people can take it. But so I say all that to say, take like my Google Doc and give it to people. And basically it outlines everything she just described so that there's like a format. And then when I open it up, me and my team member, Zach, we just have a Google Doc and we have different topics. We have the category or the bucket that goes into, we have the hook, we have like, how do we retain attention, unanswered questions, and then the meat of the content, and then, action steps or more or less. And so we have like this little outline. I think the main thing in all of this, Asia, as you already know, you need the solid hook and the thumbnail, and then you actually need to deliver on what the video is or over deliver on what the video is, right? Because if you get people in your video, right, and they come in wanting this little 3 minutes of information, but you give them 10 minutes of really good information or really good ideas and you over deliver, and it's a little clickbaity, generally most people are going to be like, oh, that's fine. Like, that's actually really cool. Like, you actually gave me more information and value, even though you kind of hooked me in with the thumbnail. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Clickbait is when you're full on like lying to people what the video is about versus what the meat or the meat of the content is. And so so Asia, that we got to figure out how to get that added to the Master YouTube Live section of the course. I've developed it after we made the course, and so I think that'll help. But yeah, it's just right now it's just a Google Doc, and I've been using. I don't use it for every video because at this point I can kind of, I'm gonna say freestyle because I'm not freestyling, but I can kind of have my flow of this is the intro, here's the hook, this is what I'm gonna plug. Now I got to make sure I keep them watching till the end. I got to give them a reason to watch till the end. I may say that in the beginning, right? And those little things, and then you just kind of make every video the same. And then if something is very spontaneous, like very, very like, yo, this just happened, oh my gosh, right? There's been times where I've been in the middle of a stream and somebody says, such and such happened, what do you think about it? And I'll literally just drop a video of my actual real-time reaction. People like that too, right? So I wouldn't get too married or bogged down with a specific linear format, because sometimes the different things can work. And sometimes I even open up Final Cut and will restructure a video and tease out the end at the beginning to maintain that retention, right? And I hate opening up Final Cut, but there are times where like something later in the video to get people to watch from the beginning till the end, and that helps a ton. I don't do that too often, but I do that sometimes as well.
Yeah. So like a traditional kind of like a vlog format where they take something in the middle and then you're back in the beginning of the day kind of thing.
Yes. I'll give you one example real quick, and because I know we got to wrap. But there's an artist named Chandler Moore who is kind of a big deal in my niche, and he took a photo at his wedding. People thought it was provocative and what have you. And we had this super long live stream about it, where I was in the middle of a stream about something totally different. People wanted to talk about that. And so we had this conversation, and if you pull it up, you might be able to find it. And so what I said was, look, the majority of you guys aren't even going to watch till the end of this video. And it was like a 45-minute video, right? And sure enough, I said that at the end of the video. I said, like, most people aren't going to watch till the end of this video. They're not going to hear the conversation that we had, how awesome it was. And so that was one of the times where I actually took the video for my restream, dropped it in a Final Cut, chopped it up in a way that made sense, and then a lot of folks just literally were like, "I'm gonna watch this video till the end," because Ruslan said I wouldn't, right? And that video went viral. That's one of my best performing videos. This is like months ago, so you're probably not gonna find it on that front page.
It's not recent,
but yeah, it's not recent. So yeah, man. So I think like being willing to play with the format could be helpful, and you also don't want it to get mundane for your audience, where everything is like the same conversation
thing every time.
You know, the same format.
Yeah. Great advice, man. Yeah, I think just mix it up. Don't be so afraid. I mean, everybody wants sort of like what is the perfect thing? You know, how long should be 20-second intro and like 5 minutes, and you know, so what's the exact formula? But yeah, I mean, like learning from you, man, you know, silver play button, you know, just mix it up every now and then and just play with it. So yeah, fantastic. Well, we're going to wrap it up because I want to respect your time. It's Friday. I'm sure you've got things this evening. And I appreciate your time here, Ruslan, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You asked great questions, man. This is stuff that like I don't talk a whole lot about on my channel, but it's definitely fun because of the opportunity that I see here, and I think it's valuable.
Fantastic, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Everybody, make sure you go register for that challenge. That's a 3-day challenge. You're going to get Ruslan live talking about YouTube and how he's doing it. So fantastic opportunity to learn from him. And we'll see you all in the next video. Thanks,
Peace, guys.